Hey y'all, so I hope you're having a good day today so far. I wanted to share some things for you to think about today with relation to our reality, truth, and how the ego has its hand in all of this. And so just discussing different ways to operate in the world, trying to be as conscious and aware of our tendencies to lean more one way than the other, and how that can illuminate some differences, big differences for you in as far as yourself, and as compared to people who operate in toxic ways. Okay, so I was flipping through this new book that I bought, and I haven't officially started it. I'm just kind of skimming through. I've got several new books that I bought, and that's what I like to do. In the store, I'll flip through and make sure that it's on my level. Like, can I comprehend the writing style of the author? Is it going to offer me anything of substance, or is it just going to be a lot of fluff? Those are the things I look for when I'm flipping through at the store before I buy it. Hopefully, in a perfect world, a book that I purchase would show me some little nugget here or there of something that resonates with me, So once I get home, then I kind of go through all the different books, and I just skim different parts, and I just decide from there which one is calling to me first to read cover to cover. And sometimes I never read a book cover to cover. Sometimes I literally just keep it there for reference, and I enjoy books that way as well. But so far, this one is it's like I can follow sections, and I'm it gives me a lot to think about, and then he'll just kind of gently take it into a different direction, and I'll think to myself, either I'm just not I don't have the background to process the direction he has shifted, or there's a background in the front part of the book that I haven't read to understand the change in direction. So just some thoughts on how I dive into and process the things I read. But I just wanted to share some thoughts that were prompted by the little portion that I was skimming through in this book. And it was a discussion on, and if you'll notice, the title is The Undiscovered Self, right? So I love pondering what it means to us to navigate this reality via our conscious awareness, and then how does our unconscious self, all the layers of the psyche. It's just super intriguing to me, because anything that's going to impact our life, which is precious and a gift, is important. And so if there are things in our unconscious awareness that are driving factors that we're unaware of, well, I fully believe that we're going to be better off. And those that are in our life and close to us are also going to be better off because of our changed behaviors, because of our personal growth. Anytime we can bring anything from our unconsciousness to the light, to the forefront, it's got to be a good thing, because then we can process, we can refine, and just improve. And so that was the portion I was reading about, was the different layers of reality, and he was specifically discussing objective versus subjective. So and then I feel like the way I look at this is you have objective reality, okay, which is just unbiased. It's just like true no matter what. It's unchanging. It's free of influence, okay, the objective reality. And then you have the subjective reality, which is different for each one of us, because that's like, the way I see it is like it's the layer of reality that we apply over on top of the real reality. It's like the lens that we look at everything through, and it's all of our biases, all of our preferences, and we tend to, as we're viewing reality through these lenses, we tend to believe this to be actual reality, when the truth is, an outsider can look at our perspectives and say, no, you're applying this bias. You're applying your preferences, but you're likely not even aware that you're doing it. And so that leaves so much room for argument, to assert the ego. And that's what I want to talk about today is, again, you have the actual reality, which Carl Jung, in the portion I was reading, the section I was reading, was saying that objective reality is largely in our unconscious awareness. And it's the subjective reality, our own biases that we believe to be reality, that is our conscious reality. So, that's why you can have all of these globally similar archetypal images and influences that pop up in our dreams, because it's just this one reality that's true no matter what, free of bias. And so we're all, and he's saying this is our unconsciousness, so it's like it's popping up, trying to come through and break through the surface in our dreams. And I think that's so interesting, because it would explain why you can take one person on this side of the globe and then compare to a person over here on the other side of the globe, and how they can have similar dreams, similar realizations or epiphanies, like at the same time. There's a term for that when it's a situation like that, where two people or even two groups of people totally across the globe who have no way to connect with one another, they can both have something rise to their conscious awareness at the same time, like inventions or whatever. I'll have to look and see if I can find that term. It's a really interesting concept of research. I read about it years ago, and if I can find it, I'll pop it in the description for you. But it's just more proof that there truly is this foundational truth of what reality really is, what it means when we say objective reality. So here's the thing. Why, I got all my notes, and I wrote why in a big bubble. Why would actual reality be relegated to our unconscious? And my answer is because it likely threatens the ego. The only way the ego can justify its own existence is it's dependent on separation. It's dependent on being contrary, on being unique, and separate from a whole, a whole. And so yes, so that subjective manner of viewing reality is what keeps the ego alive. It's what justifies that separateness, and to try and confront an ego with an ultimate truth that it's not special and unique, that equates to an ego death, right? So it's very threatening for the ego part of us. So we're all constantly struggling with ego, or you may apply the lens of saying sin, right, which is very ego driven. It's none of us are totally free of it. It's just part of being in this physical material world in reality. And of course the ego wants our individual preferences to take priority, and I told you why, because it justifies the existence, right, of the ego. So what we can do is we can gaslight ourselves unconsciously. I really believe that we can deny real reality to ourselves and do it unconsciously, because again, it's that bias even to keep the subjective reality alive in our mind, and it's just all unconscious processes, right? And this is what we work to make conscious, so that we can deal with it and face it. And so all of this, and I suspect it's going to get into this, but I view this as all being a part of the shadow, our shadow side, which I think that was even mentioned in another part of the book I flipped through. So I'm sure it's all going to tie together, right? So yes, so you have to consider that connection there, what they call the shadow. And the solution is non-resistance, or through the Christian lens, you could say surrender, or removal of the fig leaves, right? Or putting off your old ways, or when the old man dies and the new is reborn. It's accepting and allowing the ego to die. And so again, all kind of different terms you can apply to this process. Like I said, even non-resistance, right? But it's a form, whatever term you use, it's a form of surrender. And it means making room for the unknown. That's what it means. It means accepting that we don't know it all. And that there's more beyond us that we can't grasp, that we have limits. It's making room for that. And so if we choose to work this out and grasp this reality, then it's going to keep us disengaged from something that I call the culture of caveats, which is kind of like the web of this subjective reality that we all live in, right? And we want to navigate this world disengaged from this culture of caveats, because we are in the world, but we don't want to be of it, right? And what it does is it keeps humility at the center of our heart. It keeps us moment to moment choosing to live in that surrender. Okay, so when I say culture of caveats, what do I mean? So the one of the definitions of caveat from Merriam-Webster is a modifying or cautionary detail to be considered when evaluating, interpreting, or doing something. Okay, so it's just all these little details that may change the meaning. Okay, and this is where people can get just highly engaged and heated and upset. It's kind of like a game, and the cool part is you can choose not to play. And that's where you can maintain that peace by not playing. And so, and then you have those who lived heavily enmeshed in this subjective reality, in this culture of caveats. And when we can identify this, that they are driven by their ego to that degree, then we can divert them to this intentionally as a means to get them off our own back. Right? Because they're wanting to pull us in and engage us to help justify their subjective reality in any way they can. And so, typically by elevating them, again, because they want to feel separate. They don't like the concept of unity. They may say they do, but again, actions speak louder than words. So we can choose not to play this game. And people who engage this way, let me just explain a little bit further before I go over here to these notes. The culture of caveats, it's like if you get real with yourself, there are always going to be variables, no matter what argument you're trying to make, no matter what truth in this reality you're trying to pinpoint down. There's always going to be some kind of yeah, but, or what about this, or there's some kind of variable to every truth, right? In this reality. There's always exclusions. There's always, and that's what keeps science, going, is the creation of theories, where you take a caveat and you run with it and you test it, and there's variables. I always enjoyed that process of considering variables, back in school when you would do little science projects, because it's like poking holes in something, you know what I mean? And which is something that comes naturally to you if you are a problem solver, if you have that kind of mind, if you're very open-minded. You can find, all these yeah buts, I call them, all these variables, exclusions. But people who live this way, just as their life, it's unrealistic and very chaotic, I feel like, to 100% 24/7 try and communicate about every single thing in this reality like this all the time. It's because it basically leaves tons of gaps for arguments, right? It's like, why waste your time? Why waste your time just constantly engaged in trying to find an exclusion, or trying to find a variable? Because we know they're there. But there are people who just, when you think about people who want to argue, this is the game. This is the game that they play. So again, you can kind of play this game in your own mind when you're just researching and you're trying to, you're motivated for personal growth. But when people are engaged with reality outside of like personal growth and research and reading and pondering different mysteries and things like that, when it's a way of life out here in this reality, it's a chaotic life, and it creates a lot of division and chaos, and I call it a spirit of being contrary, really is what it is. And again, it's a means to justify separation, which is what keeps our ego alive. Okay. And people who are this way, they're very argumentative. They're always dangling this opportunity to engage your ego. It's like candy, it's tempting, because they may even intentionally come at you with something very passionate that maybe you're already hooked in a casual conversation, and then it turns, and then they might, this is just like an example, I'm off the cuff, I'm trying to think up here to prove a point, and they may just kind of change the tone and say something that's totally wrong about a topic, and you're thinking, well, that's not, they've got that wrong. Well, it's an opportunity to feel that dopamine rush, to kind of elevate your own ego, even if it was kind of, you've done the work and it's kind of, you've got it at bay, or you feel like you've gone through an ego death. There's always these opportunities, this temptation here with these people to get you hooked, and you could say, well, actually, what I read is that it's this and not that, and then they can just turn that and use that through this culture of caveats to say, yeah, but this. And so you can just go back and forth with a person who wants to engage in that way. Now, it's interesting because this can be a fun process. It can, if you consider it through the lens of just debating with from a good place. You know what I mean? Just two witty people who are truth seekers, and they're trying to approach this kind of engagement from the lens of iron sharpening iron. You know what I mean? There's a different kind of angle or different spirit that can this can come from. But I'm talking about the spirit who wants to elevate themselves at your expense. They want to always feel separate and above and beyond you, to keep that ego alive and to keep it boosted. And so, yes, and it can be exhausting when you try to keep a relationship with someone like this going. So it's kind of like, why waste your time? Because the thing is, a true truth seeker will spend the time to reconcile their own questions without putting you through the ringer. And this is a great truth to hold tight to when you're talking about like engaging in debates online, like in a group on a social media platform, for example. You may think it's fun in the beginning to jump in on a topic you have interest in and just give your 2 cents, and before you know it, you're getting hammered and people are just getting heated and upset and argumentative and cruel, and you're like, whoa, how did this happen? And your heart rate's through the roof, you're stressing out, your blood pressure's skyrocketed. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. So I would just caution you, if you enjoy exploring topics and going through the iron sharpens iron process, do so with someone you've already established a good and fruitful connection with, someone who has actually earned your trust, and they have your best interests at heart. It's that whole love your neighbor as yourself, someone who has shown you that's the way they operate, because then you can kind of elevate together, and that's definitely not narcissistic to do that. So anyway, yes, instead of engaging with someone who's wanting to poke holes constantly in anything and everything, We can be selective and we can disengage, when we see, something heading in that direction, right? We can just kind of back up, we can back away gently, and try not to give them any reason to, we don't want to add fuel to the fire, basically. We just want to gently back up, gently back away. And I think we've been conditioned to view that as failure, or as, losing, like a loser move, but it's really not, especially if you have surrendered your heart to a higher power, and that the truth is way more than your own preferences and your own biases. When you can admit that and you've surrendered, then I don't feel like your ego is going to take a hit when you see this person wanting you to stay engaged in this mind battle. When you just kind of back up, you're not going to take that to heart as a loss, because you can see the situation for what it is. You know what I mean? So it's both, to me, it's both a powerful move to stand down, because really when you're standing down, you're being silently grounded in truth. So it's both a powerful move to do so, to stand down, and an act of respect for the higher power, in my opinion. Because you know what you know, and that's all you need to know. So I just hope this gives you a lot to think about. And that's just fun for me. I can just take, like I said, just a little portion of any book, and just, my mind just goes, and I just enjoy that. And I do go through that process myself of saying, yeah, but this, yeah, but that. And all that does for me is it just gives me other avenues. I'll just make a note, oh, well, here's a variable, and here's a variable. And it's just kind of like you can branch off, in this little chart, in your journal, and there's all these other things to explore too. And it's just fun. It's fun, but in the end, you can have peace, because you know that you don't know it all, and that's okay, and that's a beautiful thing. So I just hope you have fun exploring and finding your own truths, and finding what you feel like is the truth, and what makes up the truth for you. And I just hope that you are encouraged and inspired, and I thank you all for coming along this walk with me, and I just really enjoyed making this for you. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you again very soon.